I was wondering whether we'd do the Thursday. I said, Ollie. I said, Ollie. Ollie. Do you want to do it? And he's such the enthusiasm of youth. Crazy kid. The crazy kid. Hello, I'm Russ Kane. And this is the ABC of CBD. It's the last one of the year. Blimey. I mean, if it was up to Ollie, I'd be having my Christmas dinner with the family, right? And he'd be wanting to broadcast. I'd go, but I'm having my lunch. And he'd go, I don't care. It's the ABC of CBD. Thank you so much for joining us all over the world. Look forward to your comments. Look forward to everything else. Now, we have a very, very special guest. Ollie can wait now. It's annoyed me. I put on a jacket just for him. Look at that. Put on the jacket. Special guest. Somebody I admire a lot. Somebody I introduced to Ollie. I'm making that bit up. Of course I didn't. It is Dr. Callie Seaman. Wow. How are you?
Hi. I'm
How
good, thank you. I'm good.
I couldn't help noticing a little message from. I'm leaving Ollie out. He can sit there like Nicholas Nickleby had his nose against the window, and it'll be all cold and snowy outside. You've done your Christmas shopping before we get into the whole point of the show?
All done. We're all ready. I've just picked up the big shop with 2 million cheeses.
Sorry, I'm laughing because I used to know somebody said when we go, have you put out Big Light? I had no idea what they were saying. I said, I'm so sorry, you completely lost me. You look a bit cold, Russell. You're going to put on big coat.
Yeah,
crack me up.
What us Northerners do.
I know. I had an education in Northernese, and it was absolutely charming. Veronica Curran is worried. Veronica Curran says, good evening, gents. Where's he hiding? Oh, come on, let's bring him on. For God's sake, I'll never hear the bloody end of it. Is he there? No, he's not there. You see, this is what happens. He's not there. He looks like he's there. He's not. Now then, Callie, what is going on in the world in Dr. Oh, look at this. Now, this is a message for you because you are very, very popular. This is from the lovely, I say she's lovely. We've never met. I'm sure she's charming. Veronica Curran up in Edinburgh. Hello, Callie. Hope you have a lovely festive season.
I'm planning on it. Lots of sleeping, lots of eating, lots of relaxing. That's what we've all got to do. And that's what it's about. Seeing family as well.
Yeah, where do you? Oh, I've just come off another radio station. We had a 30-minute political, just literally come straight off, a 30-minute political rant thing, and it was like, it's all about the COVID and the jabs, and now they're saying let's have a fourth jab. Some genius has come up with, and I'm like, you're going to run out of letters of the alphabet very soon. Soon we're going to have to call it the Mickey Mouse variant, the Morecambe Wise variant. I don't know. You're just going to have to make up any old name. Wow.
What I learned when I did my biomedical sciences degree, that pathogens don't get more deadly. What they do is they tend to get more and more infectious, but become less virulent, so become less deadly. So as this kind of mutates, what we should see is it get more infectious, but we don't actually get as badly.
Can I ask you this? I know it's slightly off-piece, but it's so important, and you are a proper doctor, as in me. The only qualification I've got is 10 meters swimming certificate. Now, my understanding is this, and while Ollie's sorting himself out, that a virus needs a host to survive. If it kills its host, it's like Suicide Squad. It's finished. It's done because it's got nowhere to go. That is, am I right? Thus far, fantastic. So a virus can be more contagious, like they're saying the Omicron one is. I always think that's some villain from a Marvel film. To be honest with you,
yeah,
Omicron.
We've got to wait for Megatron to come. That's the bad one, the Megatron.
You know it's going to be a Transformer, don't you think? Any other name? Anyway, and everyone calls it Omicron. I've been calling it Omicron for 3 weeks. I'm completely wrong. I'm supposed to know. So it can be more contagious, but heaven forbid you get it. It's not going to be great, but it's not quite as bad. Am I making this up, or is it vaguely right?
No, that's generally pathogen 101. That a successful pathogen doesn't want to kill its host. That isn't the aim of what it wants to do. It actually just wants to spread. So it becoming more deadly is actually not in its interest to do that. It won't become successful and it won't spread as far. So that's kind of how pathogens work. with this, I think what we've got to do is boost our immune systems. So keep our
Okay.
immune systems up. Don't wear yourself out. Sleep plenty. Eat well. Eat lots of raw foods as well. As I say, do everything you can to boost your immune system. Balanced diet. A lot of plant based diet, go towards that. Exercise regularly, get fresh air, keep yourself positive, and do things that nourish the soul as well. Don't just
Oh, things were
don't just
going
keep
so
drinking.
well, Callie. I was enjoying this.
Ho, ho, ho,
Ruined
ho,
just
ho, ho, Merry
oh,
Christmas.
man,
Oh my God.
the Grinch has turned up.
Literally, I hate my computer so much. It's never happened. I've never been late for one of these things. I'm usually so punctual. I've had 15 minutes. Anyway, that was incredible. And Callie, sorry to destroy your flow. Dr. Seaman, you were literally in professional capacity, blowing the hell out of everything there. That was incredible. That was really fucking awesome.
Thing about it is if I could digress just for a second, gang, I get dragged onto all these other radio shows. What's your opinion on that? And I'm going like, well, I write books, do stand up, and broadcast. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. Ask somebody who runs a sweet shop. We don't know. We can only give a guess. We don't know. When they say, well, who's to blame? Who would you blame? And you go, well, I just thank God I'm not in charge, because I wouldn't know what to do. Nobody does. It's how are you supposed to know? It's so easy to be so critical. I get that, but I'm really very cautious. It's so easy to be some gob on a stick and just criticize everybody, and I don't want to do that, because the answer is, what would you do? And all of these paid rent-a-gobs, as I call them, they haven't a clue. It's easy to shout and scream. Any fool can do that.
And I think it's perspective as well, and what situation you're in. I think that's a really big thing as well, is that my situation is different to someone else's, and your situations is different. And it's being respectful of that, respecting that we're not all going to have the same opinion, and we're not all going to think the same way, but it's being respectful for each other's opinion as well.
That's very beautiful, because that's something which is like a reoccurring message, which has kind of always been told to me, and I've always shared it with people, is look, you're never going to be able to make people think the way you think. Now, what they will do is they will respect the way you think if you respect the way they think. And those who get respect give respect, and it's a cycle. Now, the fact of the matter is you can bet money on the fact that 95% of the room will disagree with you. But there's a difference between disagreeing with someone and arguing with someone and having a war with someone over said beliefs. You can, disagree with someone whilst understanding why they believe what they believe. And that little bit of empathy goes a long way in trying to kind of build this common ground, especially in a world where we have such differing opinions. And it's completely fine. That's, like I brought up in regards to the show as well, that we have all these different opinions in this cannabis space. But fact of the matter is it's not about you being wrong or me being right or vice versa. It's about me understanding why you come from that perspective, and you understanding why I come from here.
Totally. There are very few absolutes in life. Very few. There's always a wiggle room. And there's grey areas. Life is not that simple.
Like whiskey is a terrible alcohol. Like fact, right?
I can't stand that stuff.
I literally
you're going to be no fun at the Soho Whiskey Club, our annual gathering. Anyway, look, but Dr. Callie Seaman said something very important. And, one of the things to look after yourself is, of course, your mental health. That's the whole point of Men's Radio Station. It's based on trying to help people with their mental health. But we've got to a stage in life that it's like when I was growing up, and I've said this many times, and I will continue to say, it's like, all right, we'll agree to disagree. You shake hands. You can go off and have a cup of coffee, have a drink. Doesn't mean, but now you've got to hate that person. It's this level of hate, and you're thinking, well, I don't need to hate this person. I don't agree with them. It doesn't mean I hate them. And just you don't agree with me, you don't have to hate me. But this hatred, fueled, of course, by social media, which is at the rotten, horrible heart of it all. And it's very bad for your mental health.
I couldn't agree.
Callie's advice is so, I was going to say sage, but sage is not a word I want to use unless it involves the stuffing in the turkey at the moment. Sage tries to, it's ever a misnomer. But that's it. It's so important, isn't it? Anyway, Ollie, I have taken up more than enough of your time.
No,
so-
like, thank you so much for
Oh, look, coming in from
for doing the
Spain. This is lovely. From Chrissy Richards. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Looking smart. Well, do you know what?
You look
I went
dapper
out.
as hell.
I went out for lunch and I came in and I thought, you know what? I'm going to put on a nice jacket as it's the last ABC of CBD. So thank you.
The last
Chrissy.
ABC of CBD. It's the last ABC of CBD of the
This year.
Yeah.
Not this year, not ever.
Exactly.
No, just this year.
Also,
Don't panic.
It's your last radio show of the year, isn't it?
It is my very last radio.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, because I've now been asked, would I do?
What's happened?
Would I do the breakfast show on Boxing Day on another radio station? It's endless.
And you couldn't say no.
I can say no, but I enjoy
He loves it.
I enjoy it, and I get
He loves it,
and it's great fun, and it's it's what I do.
You know how we love talking about cannabis? He loves talking. Okay, that's basically it. So it's he loves it. He loves it.
The weird thing is, in real life, I'm actually very quiet, which would be rubbish for radio. It's like doing mime on radio or card tricks on radio. It's just hopeless. Right, Ollie, off you go.
Anyway, so basically, episode 60, guys. Episode 60 of the ABC of CBD. Sorry for my little bit of tardiness. Sorry for my little delay.
Never apologize,
Okay.
Never explain.
But I mean, so yeah, episode 60. The main reason I really wanted to do this show is because I wanted to do episode 60. I just really wanted to do it. Like, it's why, Gus was like, why don't we play a rerun? I was like, no. The audience deserves some authentic Christmas fun, some off-the-cuff Christmas fun. And I thought, you know what? Let's bring on an incredible guest. Dr. Callie Seaman has been with us a couple of times so far. We haven't had her in a while, actually. And I just thought, you know what? To round off the year,
she has an actual life. That's why she has an actual proper life. She has things to do.
But to round off the year, I thought I would bring on one of my favorite guests. And as I've called this episode, the episode's called Our Wise Educated Advisor. I'm not that advisor. Dr. Seaman is. She is our wise educated advisor. And you know what? Actually, we also need to play the sponsor, don't we?
That would be a good idea.
We haven't done that yet. Let's play the sponsor and then we'll get on with the show properly. I'm here. I'm back. Christmas. Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD. A product created by users for users. A product at an affordable price, available everywhere, at any time, at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil. No additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service. The cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price.
Boom.
Very nice. Very nice.
So this week we continue to narrativize my journey towards a legal medical cannabis prescription right here in the UK. Over the last 3 weeks, we've been joined by Tim Henley from Access Canna, discussing the route through the system and the reasons why one should attempt to gain a legal prescription in the UK. We had Mags Houston from Project 21 discussing the role of the project, the patient-focused approach, the power of data gathering, and the need for NHS involvement in this general cannabis system we have here, and how their aim as a charity is to actually make this happen. We also focused on what I would expect as a patient. Sam Cannon from Beyond the Green actually joined us last week. He is actually currently a medical patient and advocate and educator in this industry and in the UK. We discussed his recent event up in Scotland, the work he's done in the industry, and his journey as a cannabis user and active patient, what ailments he suffers from, and how cannabis has helped him so much. Sam has done a lot of work sharing the stories of other cannabis users in our industry, but last week we got to dive a little bit deeper into the life of Sam. One thing we heard from all of these guests, and actually it's been a reoccurring theme across all of our shows, is their journeys have all been very personal. Tim and Sam, both sufferers and patients who have found their way and their peace in cannabis. Mags has personal friends who suffered, and it made her believe that others also deserved access to medical cannabis, and how medical cannabis is imperative for so many people. Unfortunately, there are issues COVID has not helped the system grow. The uptick from the general medical cannabis system and the acceptance of cannabis by doctors, but also patients, has been slow compared to what it should be in the UK. That's the general theme across the board. What I realize, momentum can take time to build and, of course, effort to build. And sometimes things need a little push. The more of us who join the push, the more of us who are available to create this momentum for the future system to grow and for the future system to be better for all of us as patients. So today we're joined by one of my favorites, Dr. Callie Seaman, a wise, educated advisor. She knows the UK industry. She has worked alongside many patients. She is a patient herself. She works with an organization called MedCan Support. She's part of the Cannabis Industry Council, and she's done so much more. Dr. Seaman has been on the show a few times. It's been a while. It really has been a while. So if those of you who don't know her, she's absolutely awesome. She's a true resource to our industry and to our community. As a patient first, she comes from a place of compassion and care. She has lived the struggle. She understands exactly what most of us patients are going through. She understands our needs and why we want what we want so much. Hence why I thought it would be great to get her on and get her opinions regarding my current journey and whether or not she's done it officially yet, and just to have a little Christmas chit chat with my buddy, because, you know, why the hell not? It's my show. I could do what I want. So yeah, that's basically it. So Callie, thank you so much for joining us. Doc, I really appreciate it. And yeah, like, generally, how have you been? I haven't really spoken to you much this year. Like, what you've been up to?
This year's been a bit of a kind of a, because of the way that the environment's been. I think that how everything has been, how there's kind of been a lot of anguish. I've had quite a lot of seizures this year due to the stress that's been put on. It's just part and parcel of being epileptic. That's just part and parcel, and it's actually helped me to understand more about it, understand what really are the triggers and what I can do to actually prevent those. So yeah, it's not been a brilliant year, but we have to have these kind of darker years in order to appreciate the lighter years and be able to grow more and be able to understand more about ourselves.
Callie, can I leap in there? Because as always, you always say such interesting stuff, and it's so thought-provoking. So thank you very much, especially just before Christmas, to find time to come on to Ollie's show. Do you think we as people, I don't mean me and Ollie, I mean people, really do see the light sometimes? Do you think they're appreciative? It's something that's very, very important to me about being appreciative for what you have, not moaning about what you don't have.
Yeah, definitely. I had a very kind of epiphanical moment. I was driving the car and I had a seizure whilst I was driving the car.
God.
My son was in the car with me, and luckily he knew what to do. He got the car to the side of the road, but I came round from that on the side of the road, ants in my pants, blocking a road up. No, tragic accident, but I came away from that having spoke to death, and very much changed. Very much changed my outlook.
In what way? How did it? It's really interesting. How did it change you?
To live for every single day, be appreciative of every single moment of every
go.
single day, and don't worry too far about in the head. Don't just really just look around you and appreciate things. Like I'm walking down the road and looking up at the trees and the birds in the trees, and just appreciating that they're there, and not. Don't get me wrong, there was a really dark place I was in for a chunk of time, because I blamed myself. I blamed I could have killed my son, and I went through all of this, and I sought counselling, and I'm still in that at the moment, working through all of these, really facing, sort of sitting with the feeling, not actually trying to bury it, sitting with it and actually acknowledging, this is what this feeling is. And just actually taking a moment to actually cry and to just let it out.
It's okay, but it's okay, isn't it?
Too.
If nobody gets anything else from this hour's show, It's there's a stupid phrase.
It's
It sounds
more
like a
than
whole
okay. It's more than okay. It's
okay.
imperative. It's imperative to let it
Well,
out, and it's imperative to be able to let yourself experience those emotions. Like people who bottle emotions think they're hiding them or think that they're pushing them away. You're not pushing them away. You're locking them away. It's different. They will rise up one day, and it's very important to face this stuff whilst it's in front
somebody
of you.
gave me a wonderful piece of advice many, many years ago. And it sounds so stupid, but it made absolute perfect sense. And I think it goes to the heart of everything we're trying to do, not just on this show, but all the shows across men's radio and women's radio. If you buy a fresh chicken and you haven't got a fridge, you say, oh, crap, I don't know what the hell to do with this chicken. And you put it in a drawer somewhere and you forget about it. And the problem's gone because you don't see it. But eventually that chicken starts to rot. And eventually the smell, the odor from that rotting chicken pervades the whole of your home. And it's like if you've got stuff that you either can't acknowledge, won't acknowledge, or you won't deal with, it will pervade all of your life. And you just got to look at it and go, yeah, that was terrible, but I did my best, or whatever the situation might be. You can't just ignore it. You just can't.
I completely agree with that. Go on, Callie.
And dealing with those and actually talking to someone, actually seeking professional help to help you through these times. It's not a weakness going to see a counsellor. It's a strength. You can learn so much about yourself. You can learn how to deal with things, and self-care. I was under the impression self-care was going and having your hair done and having your nails done. And I was I was getting more anxious about doing that because I was having to do this sort of kind of idle chit chat with the hairdresser, and I was feeling uncomfortable, and I wasn't actually achieving what I was wanting. And then I learned that painting is self-care, going for a walk, forest bathing, in nature, appreciating things like that, learning to say no is a big one.
Learning to say no is, see, that is massive. Here's the thing. So in this world, there are givers and there are takers. And the givers, what happens is whenever you ask a giver for something, he will give. And it's sometimes he'll say no, but usually if he says no and you ask him 2 or 3 times or ask her 2 or 3 times, eventually they'll say yes. Or when they say no, it's like no, but I'm going to do it. So, and I have the same thing as you, and it's that whole idea of, like no causes me pain. But it's not about learning to say no. It's learning that saying no is okay. It's all right to say no, and you don't have to feel bad when you say no.
It doesn't make you a terrible person.
It doesn't. It makes you. It actually makes you a true person to yourself, because you're not going to end up doing something you don't want to do. Why should you? And also, don't burden yourself. I have a question for you. It's been a while, hasn't it? Because the last time you were on the show, and every time I've met you in real life, you've always seemed to be quite, like, don't get me wrong, you've always been very open about the fact you have epilepsy, and I always assumed you had, something but I never saw you as someone who had constant seizures, because like you said, you drove and you lived a normal life. So that whole idea of, as soon as you're having seizures all the time, it changes that up a little bit. When did it all start up again? And when was the last time you had a bout like that? As in, just to ask, has it been just to get an idea? Sorry. This year
I have had 3 what they call tonic colonics through the year, which are the really big majors, and then you have your partial seizures. So they're auras, and that's usually a feeling. I call them the glitch in the matrix. They're usually a warning sign. And I've had quite a few of those. And it's all to do with the stress surrounding COVID. And every time there would be something that occurred, an announcement, I've got to the point where I've had to stop listening to radio stations because I can't deal with the actual news being on.
I did that 10 years ago. I stopped watching the news. I've got this saying: the news only brings the blues. So guess what? Every day I used to wake up and feel like crap. And I was like, why is it? Because I only watch the news. I don't watch the news. I've got no idea what's going on in the world. And guess what? Ignorance is beautiful. It is lovely. Okay, there could be a zombie apocalypse going on out there, and I feel completely safe. It's amazing. I only found out about COVID like 3 weeks ago.
Seriously. Oh, shut up.
Yeah, literally. I had no idea what everyone was going on about.
Shut up. You don't.
Literally no idea what's going on. It's an incredible world. Beautiful world. Okay, that was funny. That was funny, Russ. Don't walk away.
No, because there's a part of me thinks it's possibly true. That's
He
really
just did the
scary.
catwalk. Do you see the way he took 3 steps back so we could see how beautifully dressed he was? And then he
No, I
turned,
just took
posed,
back.
and then walked back towards us. It was actually kind of, I don't, if you could rewind that, anyone who
No, we
wants to
can't.
rewind
Thank
that
you.
and then
Move
make a
on.
little post.
We have a proper doctor who's a guest. I'm sure you have a lot of brilliant questions.
So basically, like with all the stress from COVID and also, you know, like the involvement in MedCan, the involvement in CIC. I mean, like you've always done a lot, okay? But I always, my personal perspective is a lot of what you were doing before was, you know, educating yourself to make you the best you can be. And now I feel like what you're doing is you're burdening yourself with a lot of the problems of the world that surrounds you, and you're trying to deal with those problems and help people outside be better. And have you found that maybe this year's been a bit too intense?
I'm
sorry if that's a leading question.
Well, when I was little, I used to worry about a war happening or volcanoes going off, which it seems insane. But I would have these kinds of worries about the uncontrollables. And if you can put them to the back of your head, but when this was just constantly in the news and you just couldn't get away from it, everywhere you walked, there was a poster up and everything, and it sort of ate at me. It ate at me of how society's changing, and as you said at the beginning, how we're getting this split that but people can't agree to disagree. That if you're not saying the same thing, you're a bad person, and whole families are being split up, whole friendship groups are being split up.
Oh yes,
and it's worrying where this is sort of going. You know, where everything is going, how much control. How, you know, we're going to have to register to do everything. I
get this because actually the first time I met you, all right, just put things into perspective, just put things like it was pre-COVID. I think it was like 2018, a round table. And I remember you said something to me. You said something like, it's sometimes better not to pick sides. It's sometimes better just to kind of hear everyone out because everyone's got something smart to say. And if you pick sides, you only get to hear half the smart information. I remember it was something which stuck with me because we were sitting there and everyone was debating. And I remember me saying to us, like, pick a fucking side. You're like, you're sitting there like, pick a side. You're like, everyone's saying something smart. You need to work together. It's about unity. It's not about separation. And like that was just in like our small little community. I can imagine if the world then starts splitting up into these groups, your brain is like, I don't understand. Like you've all got valid points, but at the end of the day, like, oh, I understand. It actually kind of makes a hell of a lot of sense. As in, like, it makes sense why that it makes sense that you would react that way. Do you know what I mean? Or that it would affect you that way because it's
you realize
a community and a kind of putting people together type of person. That's what I've always seen you as. I've never really seen you as waving a flag. I've always seen you as kind of like appreciating everyone's flags and opinions and just trying to find common ground. So yeah, I'm really sorry you've had that crap year. I do apologize.
It's one of those things. We come through it. We live from it, and there's lots of good things going to come from it. I'm encouraging my son desperately to get his driving license now, so he can come and pick me up.
Nice.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I'm exercising more, walking more places, planning more things, and actually, because I'm not driving now, I've got no road rage. I'm not getting as stressed, and you've just got to let things go. Just got to let it go. It's got to be how it is. Meditating a lot. I've really got into yoga and meditation now. Really.
Is that helping you? Does it help? We had a very interesting conversation. The reason I ask is other people said, you know, I've tried. Some people say meditation, absolutely marvelous, or mindfulness, as they call it. I prefer meditation. Mindfulness is a bit Californian for me, and then they say, and then there's other people like me who go, yeah. But I'm sitting there and I was going, Christ, I got 10 minutes before Tesco closes. I've got to get those emails out. And my mind is like a firework display. I'm trying, and then the other part of me saying, Russell, please stop. You're trying to meditate. Yes, I know I'm meditating, but I feel like I'm wasting my time. And you get into this loop. Then other people say, oh, no, that's all part of meditating. I can do that walking down the street, feeling that, you know.
If that's where you need to do it, where it brings you back to where you are to now, instead of those thinking about overthinking everything, just really over, you know, what happens if this happens, what if that, and and we end up in this kind of downward spiral. I like guided meditation personally. I like to be listening to somebody there
I
rather
get
than
the
trying to do it
giggles.
myself.
Callie,
Yeah.
I get the giggles. I
I'm
got
with
thrown
you.
out of a meditation weekend. I went away
I
with
ne-
my pal Andrew. We got thrown out.
I need the voice to. I need the voice to concentrate on too. I
Yeah.
can't do it myself. If I'm left in a room to do it myself, my brain does not meditate and ends up creating some next level scene, which I don't want to repeat on radio. I mean, like that's what my brain does. So yeah, I also, and I've been doing a lot of that recently. I've been doing a lot of like guided meditations, hypnotherapy, and stuff like that, because generally, like this world has literally destroyed all of us. I mean, like, and whether we admit it or not, if we admit it, we're going to fix our problems sooner than those who are saying, no, I'm fine. Because anyone who says they're fine now is not fine. And you will see in about 5 years' time, when it all comes to the surface, you're not going to be fine to deal with it sooner rather than later.
This is good. This is coming in from Edinburgh. I'll just read it out because it's a little bit long. From Veronica Curran, of course. Meditation and breath work. Am I pronouncing it right? Breath work, along with CBD and THC, and 3 most fabulous balms and the most fabulous balm. I'm with you, Callie. I need the voice, as indeed does Ollie. No, I do it myself.
Yeah, because you have a beautiful voice, Russ.
Yeah, but I don't hear that. That's not the voice I hear in my head.
If I had your voice, I wouldn't need I wouldn't need another voice. I would very happily
in my
like
head,
listen to
Ollie.
Russ Kane telling me
You're
to
missing
relax.
the point. That's not
Pour
the voice
yourself
that's
a white
screaming at.
Russian. I'll be like, yes, Russ.
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Light your joint and
a lot
relax.
of the things.
Yes, Russ.
A lot of the things that Dr. Callie has said. Number one, there is no good fretting, to use a wonderful old word, but it is fretting about stuff you can't change. There's some stuff you can't change, and it's no good saying, yeah, if we all get together. You can't change it. There is nothing you can do about it. So you got to just say, the hell with it. There's nothing I can do about this. It's not my problem now, because whatever I do, I can get upset at it or not get upset about it. It's still going to happen or not happen. And that's the thing. And the other thing, Dr. Callie, that you said, which is so important, is taking pleasure in very small things. Very small things. You don't need to think, I need the new car. I need the... So that whole landscape, I think, has gone, apart from idiots on Made in Chelsea and the rest of it, and Only Way is Essex, which seems to be their entire modus operandi. That's why I find it revolting. You know, something small, something little.
Also, it's very important. It's very important to understand the difference between the word need and the word want. Okay, because they often get confused. The word want and the word need are two different. You don't need a new car. You want a new car. What you need is oxygen, water, food, clothes on your back. Okay, that's what you need. What you want. What you want.
Stanocatic, I need.
What?
It's just an actress to remove.
Okay, fine. You want her. But I mean, it's the one. That's another thing I also did. Like I had to do the separation between the things I want and the things I need, and the things I want for myself and the things I need for myself. And it's very much, it takes a lot of pressure off yourself when you realize, actually, I don't need half the things that I think I want. Exactly. So question, back onto the show, back onto you. Do you have a prescription in the UK, a medical cannabis prescription?
Yes, I got one at the beginning of this year.
Okay.
Back in January. I'll be honest, I was very disappointed with it. I've been very privileged with my life.
No, listen, this is why I wanted you here. I wanted you because you're our honest, educated advisor. This is what you do. So Karen, so just lay it all out. We're not going to offend anyone. And if you do, sort your shit out, whoever she's offending. Carry on.
I think the biggest disappointment for me was, as I say, I have been very privileged. I had an amazing dad who introduced me, so I have had the cream of the crop, let's say. So I've been used to a higher quality. I've come from the hydroponic industry as well, so I'm very exposed to a produce which is of a high standard. Whereas this that came was pre-ground. It claimed to be 18%. I sent it off and had it tested. It came back as 8% THC within it. I was disappointed with the amount of information. Now, the actual process of getting the prescription, I was not disappointed with at all. That bit I found very easy. it was it obviously cost. So my actual appointment was £120, and then there's the cost of the prescription as well. Again, disappointing. But
who did you end up doing the like not the let's not slag off the provider of strains, because I just don't want to start a war with anyone, but who did who actually put you through your
which clinic I went to?
Yeah, exactly.
So the clinic I went to, MCCS, because
Okay.
they've got a neurologist there. I knew other people who were using MCCS there was neurologists already there. So that was my reasoning for going to them. That was wanting to go to a neurologist who dealt with epilepsy and using cannabis. And that was.
Will you disclose which doctor you used, or you won't disclose that? Are you allowed to? You're not allowed to?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay, fine.
I won't be able to.
Did you have a good experience with them though?
Yes.
This is very good. No, I tell you why, because like there's some things are like, listen, they can get better, but the service, especially coming as a cannabis user and coming as someone who's already got this education behind them, and someone like me who's used to a certain quality, I know we're going to be disappointed. I know I'm going to be disappointed, but it's more about the service and about the fact that, I think I know everything, and I know that you also have this hidden knowledge on your brain because you've lived this journey for so many years. You've got this educated father who was passing information down to you from a very young age. So therefore you've got this incredible knowledge behind you. Like, it's mainly about, the interaction with the doctors and, almost being someone who took their health into their own hands, who's now put their health into the system. Someone similar to me. I have had my health in my own hands for so long, and now I'm putting it into a system. How was that? Like, how was the letting go? Do you understand what I mean by letting go? Yeah.
Well, I wanted to experience it so that I could help improve it. So if you've never experienced anything, how can anyone sit there and say that this is wrong or this is how this needs improving? So I also wanted to go through the system to understand how that can be improved and where things are actually going wrong. I became very frustrated with my own neurologist, with my NHS neurologist, who is just obsessed with pharmaceuticals and not really bothered about anything to do with my diet, my lifestyle. They just wanted to put me on pharmaceuticals and get me addicted to those, which when you start reading the side effects of lamotrigine, which is what they would put me on, it's highly addictive. And then if I forget to take that, you can induce seizures. And this year's been a very different year, so I don't see the need to take those pharmaceuticals for that.
You also you're vulnerable again, whereas over the last few years you haven't been vulnerable. You've been managing. Now you're vulnerable again. The one thing you don't want to do is put yourself into an even more vulnerable position, right?
Yes,
I understand that.
Yeah,
but your neurologist at the MCCS is better.
Yes, I think because you're paying as well, you do tend to find when you pay, you get that full hour. You don't feel you're being rushed. The service, I find it to be a bit. I knew more than he did about cannabis, which isn't his fault. And again, this is about the education, about improving that, and that's where the likes of me and you, Ollie, come in.
But you're always going to know more than them. You're always going to know more than them. Do you know why? Because it's like filling up 2 glasses with water. You've got one cup which is already half full and one cup which is empty. If you fill them both up with the same amount of water, they both get the same amount of education. One's still going to have more than the other one. Why? Because it's just, they will never be able to catch up. But what they can do is get that foundational knowledge, that foundational understanding, what I like to call the cannabis basics. And that will give them the right, the right foundation to build their own education.
But it's not a comfortable feeling.
It's a terrible feeling.
I'm with Callie on this. When you go, there's nothing worse when you go to see an expert or the professional, and you really, which is the way our minds work, you're going to rely on their information and rely on their advice, and you think, wait a minute, I know more than they do, and you think, oh, and the ground starts to shift under your feet. It's a really uncomfortable feeling.
It depends. It depends. If was the doctor comfortable with that, or was the doctor very much Like some doctors are very, defensive, oh, excuse me, like, I think I know best. And some doctors are, you know what, actually engage with me. Tell me, let me learn from you.
He didn't have what I call Dr. God syndrome. He was very open to listening. No, and I think that again was what put me at ease, because he listened to me.
That's
and he was
my
open
biggest
to listening.
fear. That's my see. I've got a private GP who I use because it was just a hell of a lot easier, especially during COVID and everything. Than finding a doctor in the UK through the NHS is a huge waiting list for mental health issues. But I've got a great relationship with him, and I feel like I can talk to him. I'm very honest with him about absolutely everything. I like a lot of people. Honestly, they lie to their doctors because they feel like they have to. I'll tell my doctor everything, and when something goes wrong, I'll tell them that, look, I did this. I think it might have been stupid, but this was the reaction. I just want you to know.
How are they supposed to? It's like, do you smoke? No, I mean,
but that's my biggest fear. My biggest fear is I'm going to go into a room and I'm going to be like, well, this is about me, and they'll be, oh yeah, I'll tell you what's right for you. And I'm like, well, okay, look, dude. I said that's one of my biggest fears. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, carry on.
My experience was that they were not. I've had that experience with a neurologist with the NHS when I was firmly in denial 4 years ago, and my seizures started to come back. And I remember going to see this neurologist, and he basically went, "Oh, you've always been epileptic. Go away and take these." I just was coming to terms with what. But the seizure happened 4 months ago, and I've only just got to see you now. And what? And I think this was again part of the problem with my journey, and the coming out of denial was this particular neurologist. He'd got Dr. God syndrome. I remember coming back and just sitting there and crying, and just crying and crying. And there's all of this other support that's needed around epilepsy. It's not just a neurologist telling you what drugs to take. What you need is all of these comorbidities that go with them, the depression, the highs that we have, the lack of sleep.
At the end of the day, it is probably the most severe mental illness which affects young people. Okay, that is probably I don't know. I know that there's other issues, but I mean, if you think about it, I'm just trying to, because it's in terms of epilepsy is actually life or death. Do you know what I mean? It's actually life-threatening. Do you know what I mean? To the point where it's life-threatening in a click, and that's why I make that comment. And once again, it could be I'm not degrading anyone else's ailments, but I'm saying I live with an ailment where I'm not going to die. Okay, I don't have that fear ever in my life.
But you could say in fairness that all mental health issues are potentially life-threatening. Because if depression, there's a difference between being a bit.
I realised I said
cheesed off.
I didn't mean to say something wrong there.
Or you're clinically depressed, and that can have a very tragic ultimate consequence. So I think we have to be slightly broader in our thinking. If you don't
but what I'm saying is, from my buddy Edward Granger, who we've had on the show before, he said something that he's had a much better experience of his medical cannabis neurologist than he has of any other doctor he's ever had, and they actually listen and they engage. And he talks about his other pharmaceutical meds with his private doctor because he's the only one who will listen. He's the only one who will listen, and it's just it's quite. I know we have to pay for it when people do it, but I think it's quite important. And there is that bigger picture. And it's also that living healthy. And he's started walking 20 miles a day. And he's had a full revamp of his diet. And so if I piss Ross off, whatever, he'll come back. It's Christmas. He always comes back. So, so he was saying that he's got this entire life uplift from his doctor. And I think it's quite special. I was wondering if you've had the same sort of experience.
Yeah, my experience with the neurologist from the MCCS was very positive. What I did find was it was the quality of the produce that I got. I couldn't warrant spending that money on it. I just couldn't.
Do you know what Tim said? Tim Henley said, he goes, this is what a lot of patients are suffering with, because the main thing is whether you have a small amount on a prescription or a large amount on a prescription, you still have the prescription. And he said, at this moment of time, that's what's important to the patient, is the prescription. He said, over time, the supply will get better. But right now, what you guys have to focus on is the fact that you have that piece of paper, which is your legal defense. You have that piece of paper, which means you are no longer a criminal. And you have that piece of paper, which means you can speak to a doctor openly. And that's what Tim basically repeats over again. He goes, don't think about the end supply. Cannabis is easy to find in the UK. We don't live in a place where it's impossible to get. Most of us already have our supply chains. The main thing we want to do is you want to become a patient in order to be a legal consumer of cannabis. And whether you're buying a quarter a month or you're buying an eighth a month or a gram a month, you're still a legal consumer of cannabis. And that is what we're trying to build the numbers up for. I'm like you. I want to join the system to change it from within. I understand cannabis and cannabinoids, and we had someone on last week, Max Houston from Project 21, and we were talking about other cannabinoids. Like she mentioned a friend of hers who has endometritis, and I was like, you should look into CBC and you should look into CBG in the form of like a strong concentrated belly button drop or something like that. She might not need THC. She might not need it's worth trying these and exploring these. And she was like, oh, we'll look into it. Because
can I ask a weird question? I didn't have the chance. I didn't have the opportunity last week to ask this. And I think I just raised my eyebrows. You are literally putting a drop into your belly button.
Yeah.
Now, explain. I'm not being facetious. Where does it? I understand if you put it on your tongue, like you've suggested. I get that. Where does it go?
So,
am I being thick here, Doctor?
No, you're not being thick at all, because like modern medicine doesn't really acknowledge the belly button as anything kind of special. But like from the moment you're formed, like from the moment you're an embryo in your mother's womb, you are formed from your belly button. You are formed from your belly button out. So you are formed. So every single nerve ending starts.
Okay, so you drop it in
your belly button.
I get that. So you drop it in, and then
drop it in, and it absorbs.
Huh, okay.
See, for something like endometriosis, personally, I would recommend either a suppository or a pessary.
Yeah,
because you've got
also great.
We've got one of the highest bioavailabilities. It's a mucous membrane within the anus and within the vagina as well. Just like the inside of your nose is a mucous membrane. So things pass very, very easily through those particular membranes. The skin is a waterproof layer itself. It's an organ. It's actually the biggest organ in your body, the skin. And it is quite hard to get through. So bioavailability in the skin isn't as high as for example, those mucous membranes, and say nose, the inside of your mouth where you've got all of the, as you say, saliva there, the anus.
But they won't do suppositories in the UK market, will they? As in, you can't get a suppository. And also for back pain, suppositories are great. And also for, to be honest with you, for large amount of cannabinoid intakes, if you're taking anything over 600 milligrams a day, let's say it's end of life you're taking it for in comfort, is also a great place to take it, because there's less psychotropic effects, because there's less access to the CB1 receptors in the brain. So, I mean, there is a lot behind it. But once again, all of this stuff is not being done. Anyway.
Well, the reason for a lot of suppositories not being on the market is because they're classified as medical devices.
I'm saying, but on the medical market, as in, like, even with a prescription, you can't get one.
They are classified as a medical device.
Yes, because of it is being inserted. So a cream is very different, but because it's a particular shape that you're inserting, and then it's melting and then being absorbed, that's classified as a medical device.
Because there's no other reason why anyone would shove one of these.
Well, yeah, I get that point.
Suppositories up somewhere. You won't do it for any other reason. It's not like a beverage where you could be taking it to quench your thirst, or a cream you could be taking it for vanity purposes.
And
if you are using one of these, it's for a reason.
And if it's classed as, hang on, whoa. If it's classed, I'm just curious, if it's classed as a medical device, what impact does that, are there whole new rules and regulations? And
so they actually can't give them. So you can take your oil and make it into a suppository. So one of the things I will do is take oil and mix it with some coconut butter and put it into molds and put it into the freezer and use them that way. So that's not a problem at all. So you can mix that up, do it that way. You can get
I'm
the
not
little
eating around your
cartridges.
house, by the way, Callie.
No,
I'm just
there's
telling you
far
now.
worse things in my freezer.
Oh my God. I bring my own food.
Do you not understand? She's like a proper witch, this one. She's incredible.
You know what I'm just thinking?
probably
She'd
have
say,
the
I'll have it.
cauldron.
She said, would you like a Diet Coke? Yeah. Would you
Yeah,
like
do I
ice
have a
with that?
cauldron?
No. Callie, thank you very much.
Ice with cat
I don't have
claw.
any ice with it because I don't know what else.
Ice with hair of mute, right?
There's various different kind of ice cubes and various
I
different
get
things
it.
in
No,
that
thank you very
I
much.
just throw in.
You
And I
only
do have a
live
cauldron,
once. Of course you have a cauldron. Trust me, the wizards recognize the witches. Anyway, what I was going to say, so working closely within the cannabis community, as you do, working with, like with MedCan, working within the CIC, what's the feedback from other legal patients? Are their journeys, how are they going? And have you found that most people's feedback to the supply side of the system is similar to yours, or because let's say, because you're a flower consumer as well, aren't you? You haven't gone for the oils. So I assume a lot of the patients who go for the oils, it's not, look, oils are available in the UK market. They are available to buy black market, but they're very, very, very inconsistent. And also most of the time you don't really know who's the wizard or the witch behind the batch. You don't really know. So, and there's very rarely a COA. There's very rarely even a strain affiliation. You won't really get much information at all when you're buying an oil fabricated on the street market. However, I assume a lot of the people who are buying THC oils and stuff like that, THC drops and other extract derivatives from the supply chain are getting a very different experience because they're getting something mathematically accurate. But as a flower consumer and other flower consumers, how have you found that other people's experiences have been similar to yours? And am I in for a very sad awakening?
Inconsistency in supply. So if a patient will find a particular strain that works for them, they're unable to get that strain again. That keeps coming back. Inconsistency in the product. So a lack of consistency in the product, which is coming through as well. Now, what I feel needs to happen is we need a domestic supply. So we need supply produced within the UK. It needs to be grown here. It doesn't need to be shipped from all the way from Australia. That's where mine came from. And why are we shipping something all the way from Australia?
The carbon footprint, the money in and out, the import duties, the import taxes, the shipping fees, it's all just adding onto the product. Insane.
Yep. And we can remove that by having this domestic supply and a consistent domestic supply. So it's known what you're getting and you're understanding what that extraction process as well. I felt there was a lack of information that came with the actual product itself. So the actual service I received from the actual appointments, brilliant. I have no issues with that. I thought that was excellent. The prescription came very quickly. But the actual product itself, that's what I found to be, and I get this again and again and again from patients. But what it does do is it reduces a large amount of anxiety for a lot of patients. They know that where it's coming from, so they're not having to go onto the black web, or they're not having to go, meet somebody in a car park and then a risk of, being robbed doing that. That it removes all of that.
Arrested doing that. I think that's. But I think in today's world, more people fear, reprisal from the law than they do getting robbed by their dealer. Do you understand, like what I mean? Like that whole idea is more. It's more of the trouble. Really? Maybe you're right.
It's not like we can actually ask them, is it? It's not like
it depends. It all depends who you're having to deal with. It all depends on your situation.
It's awful. I'm sorry. Both of those options, both option A and option B, are ghastly.
What I don't understand is there are several
farms. You don't want to be arrested.
There are several farms in the UK. It's just like no one seems to be allowed to break ground. You've even got the Isle of Wight supply chain, but no one seems to be allowed to break ground. I don't really understand it. We've had, the boys on from GLO. Like I've actually spoken several times to the people from Hilltop Leaf. I've spoken to people at Equinox and stuff, and like no one's allowed to break ground. It's a bit. I can't really get my head around it. I'm like, all right, why? But the whole point, we're allowed to have clinics and we're allowed to have a supplier who buys and sells. We just No one's allowed to grow it. And it's just, I just really can't get it's money, guys. Make your money, Mr. Government man. Like, make your money.
No one's allowed to commercially supply. So a lot of the licenses that we see in the UK are research licenses for research purposes to get to that point. A lot of investment is needed to be able to get to that point. Then that product needs to be registered with the MHRA in order to be classified, being able to be a commercial product. I don't understand fully why there seems to be all these roadblocks. We keep being sort of told that, it's been Brexit that slowed it down, or it's COVID that slowed it down, so there's not been people in the offices to fill things out. I think what we do need in this country is an office of cannabis, not just medicinal cannabis, of cannabis that encompasses everything. It shouldn't be the Home Office that's dealing with this. It shouldn't be the same people who are dealing with firearms who are deciding who gets the licenses. It should be a cannabis office. So that deals with hemp, that deals with everything around that, so that these are specialists within that area who understand cannabis, not just understand how to tick boxes.
I think you're the first person to put that forward as a proposition.
And then it literally gives them the ability to have a stamp straight away, just like the VAT man, and be like, all right, guys, pay me my money and I will let you work for free. And you don't pay if you don't pay me my money, then I'm going to destroy your lives. And guess what? They will build the best system around. Why? Because they will enable the best system to be built. And I don't care if I was allowed to open a dispensary and they wanted 75% of everything I earn and the other 25% had to go to charity, I would still open my dispensary.
It's interesting, Ollie, when I put this forward in my total ignorance and innocence months ago, and I said the way this will all be resolved is money. When the people realize that it's a brilliant form of taxation, that it'll bring in so much revenue. When the tobacco companies realize, that's the decline.
I think this is part of the problem. I think you've actually got another industry who's actually scared of this industry. I think it's the alcohol industry, who will see this.
Undoubtedly.
This
is a good point.
I think there is industries holding the pharmaceutical industry sees the potential and are holding this back because they see the loss that they're going to have with all the opiates. Cannabis isn't addictive. I mean, okay, yes, there is certain forms of addiction to it, but it's not addictive in the same way as opiates.
What do you mean by that?
So there are, if you have a predisposition to be addicted to something, you will become addicted to
if
cannabis.
You have an addictive nature, you will become addicted to porn or to drink or to gambling or women or whatever.
Walks in the park or to the gym or to anything. Like addictive people can get addicted to anything.
Okay.
Yeah, and there is certain forms of physical addiction that are very rare, very, very rare. And this is with chronic use. I mean, it was quite interesting. I remember doing Can Talks back, it was about 3 years ago, and there was somebody who came on who he was actually saying that to say cannabis is harmless is actually an irresponsible sentence. It's the degree of harm it does is very different. So if you're actually comparing it to the harm that alcohol does, that's a very different sentence to saying cannabis is harmful, because there's always, everything comes with a risk, and we have to be aware of that, and we have to not ignore the possible risks that for those who have got a predisposition to psychosis, it would have been anything that could have triggered that.
Yeah, you can choke on a marshmallow, can't you?
THC can trigger seizures in certain people, so that it's very dependent on that person, and I think we've got to be aware of that, and we do need to not be naive in just saying that it's completely safe. It's very safe. It always
annoys me when people, it's not magic, it's not free, it's not Harry Potter magic. It's a real thing, and with every real thing there is situations that can occur,
and that comes through education. Through education, we find out more, and through also understanding and, like I said, discussing both sides. When you shut up and you listen to what the other side is saying, and you start to take it on board, you get to learn something new. And whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it's still a fact which you need to learn, or maybe a fiction which you need to learn.
In the final minute of the show, Dr. Callie Seaman thank you so much
Very
for
quick
joining us.
hour.
And also, what are you going to be doing for Christmas? Just because I'm nosy, it's got nothing to do with ABC of CBD. I'm just nosy.
Eating, sleeping,
Yeah, right.
not raving, not anymore.
No,
but
no.
I'll be repeating the eating and the sleeping and laughing. I'm at home and
What do you want?
I'm going to be.
And Ollie Mammon, the hunk of hemp, what are you going to be doing?
Well, everyone around me seems to be getting COVID. So it kind of is like people seem to be dropping like flies. I mean, it's freaking mental out there. So I don't know. Staying safe.
That'll do.
Eating,
Leslie
drinking,
Demesa, I haven't got time to read the whole thing because I've got to go, but thank you so much. That's an excellent point. I wish I'd have seen it a little bit earlier. You can see it when you look at the things. It's been a wonderful year. Ollie, thank you for bringing this show to Men's Radio Station. I really appreciate it. I thoroughly enjoy it. Dr. Callie Seaman, you are welcome anytime whatsoever. We wish you well, of course, with all your trials and tribulations, which are not to be minimalized whatsoever. You're a hero. You really are a hero. Chrissy Richards is staying at home being Spain. Have a wonderful Christmas, everybody. A happy and a safe new year. We will see you, heaven willing, in 2022. Until then, stay safe and try and stay out of trouble.
Bye, darlings.